Hello, brothers and sisters at the gate, and those of you watching on social media. I would like to read a parable that Jesus gave us, which can be found in Luke chapter 15, starting at verse 11. There was a man who had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me." And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion, and ran and embraced him and kissed him. And the son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to celebrate." I can relate to that parable, being a prodigal myself, and I felt the reception that the Lord gave me upon returning to Him. I felt it was an emotional thing for me. But this is one way that a prodigal returns to the Father. When he comes to his senses, sees his situation and the weight of the things that he's done, goes back to the Father. But there's another way, and I would like to read a little story to you. It was a story by Clement of Alexandria, who was an early church father. The story is passed down to us from Eusebius, the writings of Eusebius, who was a biblical scholar and regarded as one of the most learned Christians of his time. He lived at the time of the Emperor Constantine. According to Clement, when John returned from the island of Patmos, where he is said to have written Revelation, he lived in Ephesus and sometimes traveled to neighboring areas, appointing bishops and establishing order in Christian communities. In one city, a male youth caught John's attention, and John committed the youth to the care of the local bishop. The bishop raised him like his own son and baptized him. However, in spite of this godly influence, the youth got in with a bad crowd and became a criminal. Eventually, he became the notorious leader of a band of robbers. Sometime later, John visited the city and asked about the young man. The bishop, breaking down and crying, told the apostle about how he had left the church and became a robber. John was extremely upset and immediately demanded that someone show him the way to the robbers' outpost. Despite being elderly and vulnerable, he fearlessly approached the robbers and demanded to see their leader. The leader tried to run away from John, but John chased him and cried out, "Why do you run from me, child? From your own father, unarmed and very old. Be sorry for me, child, not afraid of me. You still have hopes of life. I will account to Christ for you. If need be, I will gladly suffer your death, as the Lord suffered death for us. To save you, I will give my own life. Stop. Believe. Christ sent me." Upon hearing this, the hardened criminal burst into tears, dropped his weapon, and hugged John. He repented of his sin, and John went through an intense time of prayer and fasting on his behalf. Eventually, he was fully restored to the fellowship of the church. So we see a prodigal, in the first instance, coming to his senses, realizing what he has done, the weight of what he's done, the guilt, the shame, comes to his senses and goes back to the Father, who is obviously received him. It was a warm reception. The second case, we see somebody going out and pretty much running down this prodigal, going out of his way, even in spite of the danger that John was in, being in that pack of crooks. He went out and brought back the prodigal, restored him back to the Father. And that's what I would like to share with you in this short little video. And that is, right now is a good time with all that's going on. There's a lot of people at home, a lot of time on their hands. It's a good time to reach out to someone who you know is a prodigal. Go out of your way. Share your love. Share the love of the Lord with these people. And I would like to suggest, if they, we can't go to church right now, which might be a good thing for these prodigals, invite them to the Zoom at the gate. It's a good chance for them to get their feet back in and amongst other believers. So I encourage you to step out, reach out to somebody you know that has walked with the Lord but is not walking with the Lord now. James chapter 5, verse 19, "My brothers, if any among you wanders from the truth, and someone brings him back, let him know that whoever brings back a sinner from his wandering will save his soul from death and will cover a multitude of sins." What more can we do for the prodigals than to stretch out our hands and invite them back into the household of faith? God bless you all. Hope to see you on Zoom on Sunday. And I pray the Lord will be with you and see you through these rough times we're in. I just pray blessings on your life. Thank you for watching. God bless.